Hello, my name is Timothy Gager. Welcome to Virtual Friday's Dire Literary Series. And my feature and guest tonight is Kimberly Ann Priest. And let me tell you a little bit of something about Kimberly. She's gracing us from Central Maine right now, and that's her new book. It's her first full-length collection of poetry, but she's been writing much. It's Slaughter the Bird, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And I always tell people that write down the web address, kimberlyannpriest.com. Her bio is, she's done so many things. And when we do the question and answer, I'm going to talk about that a little bit, but she's released 2 books in 2021 and a book in 2020. And she is a proud native of Michigan, and she's been published in so many places. And well, before I mention anything else, I want to get right to my feature. So without any further from me, I would like to introduce to everyone Kimberly Ann Priest.
Hello, everybody. At a summer camp right now. I'm going to be working with some kids this summer.
Hey, Kimberly,
I'm doing an office job, which is very low key, so it's nice. I try my. Can you not hear me?
Your audio is going in and out, so let's try and see what we can do here.
I'm not sure. Can you hear me all right? Maybe yes. I need to get closer. Is that good? Good?
Yes, I think you're good.
Okay. So real quick again, I'm coming to you from Maine from a summer camp, and hopefully we won't have any interruptions. The kids haven't shown up yet, so it's still pretty low key here, but I'm really happy to be here, and I'm super excited because my first book, Slaughter the One Bird, just came to me in the mail about a week ago. This is the only, the proof copy. I'll have all of the copies in July, but super excited about this book. And I'm going to read to you about 5 poems from this book and give you a little bit of context. First of all, I want to let you know that if I need to put out a trigger warning tonight for any of you, this book has, what I'm going to read is very intense material. So if you're not able to deal with that tonight, I completely understand if you need to do something else with your time this evening. But the poems I'm going to read and the poems in this book span a lot of territory, from childhood sexual assault to domestic violence and adulthood, a very long-term domestic violence situation. To give you some context, obviously the speaker is me in this book, and my experience from childhood is something that was repressed until my 30s. So I was in my early 30s when I had the memories. They were vivid, they were full, everything was there, the man's name, his face, everything. I was already in a domestic violence situation. And so those memories and the trauma that I was carrying was used against me from then on out in the marriage to sort of say, hey, the reason you think you're in an abuse situation is because you had something happen before. It's not because anything's actually happening now. Very untrue, but gaslighting, we all know about gaslighting, and I assume we all know about gaslighting. This book deals with that a lot, that experience of being in a traumatized body and having someone use that against you and gaslight through religion and things like that. So I'm just going to read 5 poems that, again, are intense. I'm mostly going to read through them because I like to just feel the experience without a lot of interruption. And I think that you'll get the full import of the story from these 5 poems, even though there's lots of other things in the book that involve my children, motherhood, other things that I was dealing with at that time. So if we are ready, let's get to it. First poem is Theodicy. In the photograph, I am 4 years old, wearing my father's navy cap, posing atop a mattress, blue and white striped coverlet to match my white t-shirt and cobalt pants. I look every bit Popeye, blonde pigtails, fists at my waist. My father bends his arms, gangly as mine, to take the photograph. I wonder now if this is the bed, if this is the coverlet on which my legs were spread the width of a hand, on which the optical system of my eyes collected dimly lit contours of a man's face, the every other Sunday gaze of a pedophile, third seat, first row, next to the pastor's wife, smiling like the broken swag of moon draped across my bedroom floor, passage to the closet, burrow, bed, one finger with crack between closet doors, my labia safely gathered in a hand, waiting to leave this space the morning after. My mother finds underwear crumpled beneath a chest of drawers, and me in the closet remembering nothing. 30 years later, remembering something. This space, sheets bunched and threaded through our limbs, my husband's silent, smiling face, a door safely gathered in his hand, one finger with crack of vagina, burrow, bed, third seat, first row of the moon, me, collecting the eyes of my father when he says he didn't know he had left me with a pedophile. The contours of my marriage spread the mere depth of a photograph. They cling. Wingspan for shouldering witness. Things seen but weighted with inflection, flicker of light on white teeth. Synonyms split like fireflies in glass, surveyed, examined. Moths collide with all eyes open, too minuscule to see the screen door's wire cage. A pair of scissors. Heavy are my hands. Your mouth cut like a newspaper clipping. Brief confirmation of a face, humming like a dial tone, a very clear connection. The way he also hummed, from earlobe to artery to waist, to the pale skin circumferencing my labia, where the hair is shaved and the follicles have never seen the light. I see the light licking at our roof beams, its energy worn out, rehearsing, re-entry, repeating, do this in remembrance of he, I do. You wipe your penis clean with the shirt discarded at the end of our bed, as though the half-hard limb in your hand is object sharp, ready to be sheathed. And you face me as you do this, taking in the whole scene, my underspread body pried open enough, slightly, your flipped up finger already cleansed of any afterthoughts of me, lukewarm and leaving the slaughter, recomposing, the first time a pedophile carved up my seams. I lie in the heart of the afterglow naked, both men bisecting this bomb shelter night. Ex post facto, a body memory. Maybe it is the cut of his eyes. The room closes like a closet, slips into his body, hoping for a door. She feels her way across currents surging, heaving, walls crash, water breaks. He fishes tears out of the torrent, says, because you were molested, to her mouth. So the phrase ex post facto is a Latin phrase, and it refers to the law being applied backward. So, perhaps a new law is created and then it is applied to things that have happened in the past. I've used it in this book because the framework for this book is the book of Leviticus, the sacrifice, the slaughter of a bird for leprosy. And So there are a few sections of ex post facto where it's reflecting on the way that the present is moving backward into the past, to retrieve those memories, the way that the body remembers old traumas. There's also a section in this book called The House. And I'm going to read one section from that book. I'm not going to explain what the house refers to at this time. That would take longer. But I'm going to read one poem from that section. They are prose poems like this. The whole collection of these prose poems, see that? The whole collection of these prose poems were published in a book called Still Life that PANK put out last year. It's a chapbook. Each poem starts with my pedophile. It's a very intense book by itself, but there's just a collection of these in here because I wanted the reader to get into the body of the woman that was harmed, into the old experience. So I'm going to read one of those poems, and then I'll read a final poem from the next section. My pedophile produces a cinematic frame. If it is pornographic, there is the soft spread of butter on toast, the few crumbs that suck salt from its yellow, white, solid, thick with table knife, scraping the center into furrows, yellow running onto white plate, showing through deep cuts. And if she is nude, the eggs are undercooked, soft, round bulb of yellow shaped bright bulb, fork impressions on transparent shield, the full runny width of white plate. And if there is sex, it is embryo, salt, slices of toast. But if it is breakfast, it is me. The whole white surface, bright and bulbing, undercooked, tight as egg. How much he loves salt, to lick it from the surface, butter rolled over his tongue, the way he sets the knife at the edge of the plate after preening yellow yolk from its teeth, and never talks about porn or nudity or sex, yet I feel photographed. A film played across a makeshift screen, white sheet, clothespins, the cheap reenactment of something he eats, the eggs, the toast, the butter of me spread over its surface. And the final poem I'm going to read is in the section of the book titled Ex Post Facto, and it is after divorce. So it's after the woman has left the situation, but the book definitely returns to the trauma, because trauma doesn't just leave when you leave the person who has abused you. So this is one of my favorite poems because I used flat earth in the title. You guys know about flat earth, the flat earth movement. I know very little about it, but I saw one of the trucks, people that believe the earth is flat. So I used this in the title of this poem. As a metaphor for other things, but it's titled, This Is Not My First Flat Earth Poem, with lines from Psalm 33. My body is being a body again, taking photos of itself in the bathroom where the windows don't facilitate too much light, glass blocks stacked like bricks, My body is wielding its bones at the damaged mirror, smoky, under a low-hanging light, where the waters of the sea are gathered like a heap, and I mouth a protest concerning the shape of a thing I cannot command, the plans of a man's heart. I hold my purse close to my hip, and my hip holds my questions close to me, the image reflected, one-dimensional, resisting their every curve and dot, but by its great might, the image cannot rescue me from asking. I cavort the landscape as if I possess a pair of wandering eyes and could tease out the same answers a viewer might awake standing before the garden of earthly delights at the Museo Nacional del Prado, its panels closed, concealing the historically unknowable inside. Like still life, not landscape, Bosch has painted the world flat inside a bubble and fed it with springs, a biblical mist, mounting hills, cushioning the trees so that their porous trunks are fleshed ever so softly, softly. The round bulb dips its buttocks into the open air of this tiny bathroom, safely exposed, too hot to touch, and the bathroom walls remember they are peeling. Outside its doors, shaky graves suggest that the bartenders and drinkers try to forget all them enemies and debts. Of course, the tabs go up, the laughter, the music, fists in pockets, bar brawls are rare, or so I've observed. I keep myself useful to the scenery, lip gloss instead of red lips, jeans, a rain jacket in case, no tequila or whiskey. I am as poetic as one bottle of Corona Light. Finished with my drink, I slipped into this space, shed my energy, rearranged the hair around my face. Dear mirror, if we are discussing the bulbs that rub their breasts against the bald dome of the Earth's protective sphere, then we might as well admit the beginning of everything is always a little sexy. A stranger pays for my beer like a friend. After that, the music begins to feel like the Lord is looking down from the heaven, his back arched, and the whole damn creation supine. From a learned distance, I watch the panels begin to open and know he will see what he thinks he has made, how it is so explorable, over and around, how it can be opened, how it can be closed, how it can be opened again. Its unlatched cover spread across a surface. Peekaboo, there you are, all the tempting children of men.
Well, thank you so much. That was wonderful and very intense. Now, when you do a reading and you're reading all these intense stuff, do you ever feel like totally exhausted when you're finished?
No. I actually, growing up, I wanted to be a performer. I was going to be a recording artist. I really wanted to be an actress, but that takes a whole level of I think dedication that most of us probably can't work up. But I loved acting. I've been on the stage since I was 4, so I actually am really energized by performance. And I tend to sort of when I'm reading, I tend to just feel the experience more than what I'm reading about, if that makes sense.
Do you do any acting now?
No, I wish. No, I don't. Just the poetry videos I put out.
Now, why did you name, someone wants to know, John does, why you named your first poem Theodicy, which is problem,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
which is in the definition is problem of evil.
Yeah, so it's the whole book again is framed in the book of Leviticus, and it's one of the Levitical sacrifices for getting rid of leprosy, cleansing the house of leprosy. So it's very, the book is very much about how religion, or how a I would say a worldview that's really dedicated to rooting out evil in the world. You know, just that's the whole program, can be very intense, and it's very much dealing with the fact that traumatized people are stressed on many levels, and when we live in a world that's full of full of right and wrong, labeling things very strictly instead of all the gray area where most of us live, we end up in shame and blame and all of these things. And so the book is taking a close look at that within my own story. Theodicy, Theodicy, even the title "They Cling" comes from the book of Job, but Theodicy is referring to how God interacts with creation. It's the whole thing, the whole theodicy, and yes, evil being a part of that. So I used that poem at the beginning of the book to sort of say there's a whole worldview here. We're looking at something that's dealing with evil, with really evil presiding over the people in the book as a divinity in itself, an angry God that I think a lot of us, if you've grown up in church, you've had some introduction to that that side of things where, you know, there's a very angry divinity that's sort of out to, you know, get rid of all the bad stuff. So that's why I named that first poem Theodicy, to sort of set up that framework.
Now, when we spoke before your reading last week at some time, you'd said that you are an open book. I was trying to do some screening stuff with you. So how does that work in poetry, and does it work better in poetry than it does in life?
Yes, most definitely. In life, it's complicated because we live in a world where people feel a lot of shame about a lot of stories. And, you know, I'm not really one to hang on to shame or guilt. You know, I examine it, I turn it, I find out, okay, what is this really from? Is this usually anything that has to do with shame or guilt is imposed from the outside. You know, it's because we live in a social world, right? So, you know, I do a lot of examination on that. I try to get the shame and the guilt out because that's not something that I need to carry with me. But when you're in the world and you're willing to talk about these things that a lot of people aren't willing to talk about, you know, people have all sorts of reactions to that because they're dealing with their own shame or you know, maybe the shame of something that having to do with somebody they know. So when I'm reading, the poetry is a really great place to put this, for one. And when I'm reading in front of audiences, there is sort of an expectation that we are going to explore difficult territory a lot of times when you're in poetry settings, when you're with other artists. But when you're just talking about these stories in what I'll call the real world, not everybody wants to hold space for that or even talk about their own. There's a lot of, you know, reactions to those things. So the answer is yes, it's better in poetry.
It's a great question coming up from TL Sherwood, which is because I was going to go right there. So you worry about your ex, the man who abused you, in terms of reading these poems, and if he has read them, has he contacted you?
Okay, so that's a great question and really easy to answer. Actually, my ex-husband and I have two kids. They're now 20 and 21. So, you know, the relationship when you have children, yes, I'm older than I look. I saw that. My abuse situation was incredibly complicated. So I'm just going to throw something else at you. My ex-husband is gay. So we both came into the marriage with our separate traumas, both having grown up in worldviews that did not accept specifically his, you know, identity, and a worldview that also, you know, doesn't want me to deal with my past assaults. So we both came into it with our separate traumas. I embraced, I would say, a healing process, even though I'm not a big fan of the word healing, but I embraced a different process than he did. And we have just this last year actually been able to talk more. He knows I've written these poems. He has very explicitly told me, I did those things to you. It was wrong. I should be in jail for the things I did to you. And he's very grateful that for whatever reason, and I don't know, but I tend to let things go. I think it's because I write it in the poetry, and so that lets it go for me. But it was horrible, and I'm still dealing with the PTSD from it. So, you know, it's not an easy relationship. We don't talk often, but he's definitely aware that, you know, I'm strong enough to say this is my story. This is what I had to carry. And you know why I had to carry it. And he doesn't really interact with that. He just lets that be. So maybe a little lucky in that way.
Now, are you a strong advocate of people, maybe even everyone, writing through their trauma, even if they're not writers?
Absolutely. I am a strong advocate for that. It doesn't have to be writing. Long before I was writing, I'm a visual artist as well. I paint and all sorts of things. So I think that can also be a wonderful place to work out traumas. But I think that, you know, the more freely you can explore the darker parts of your experience. And again, I hate dichotomies. So words like dark and light I'm not a fan of either, but trying to find language here, being willing to work through those things that we typically associate with shame and guilt and all of, self-loathing, whatever it might be, regret, etc. When you can work through it, when you can dive into it and sort of parse it out, you can actually love the parts of yourself that succumb to harm, that have done harm, that have you can soothe those parts of yourself and release those parts of yourself from the shame and the guilt that those parts feel, and we become more integrated beings. So I've done a lot of study on this, an extensive amount of study, and I'm still doing it, but I have found that it is pretty exclusively just extremely successful.
Now, currently you're sitting there at Camp Tapawingo. So are you doing literary stuff or literary teaching there, or are you just there getting a break from that? And how does it compare being at Camp Tapawingo versus an academic environment?
Yeah, in some ways it's a relief from academia because especially this year, there was just a lot going on, with a lot of us moving to online teaching. And of course, a lot of wars over how to handle COVID and things. And it did become a very exhausting year. I love academia. I love being around people who are curious and researching things. I really enjoy it. I love it more when I'm around artists in academia, which I've had some limited access to that in my current job. Not as much as I'd like. But coming to camp over the summer, I've done this now for, well, I could say 2 summers in a row, but we had COVID year, which was a break. I've come to this camp for the 2nd year, and I don't know if I'll do it again next year, but it's a place, it's Maine for one, and I just adore Maine. But it's a good place to just move my body, like be outside and be with a bunch of kids. And it takes my mind off of all of the projects and stuff that I'm trying to work on. It just gives me some sort of mental relief like that, kind of forces me out of that overstimulation, mental overstimulation that I get with academia. So that's one of the reasons I do it.
Now, do you have a question? Like, your poetry is very emotional. So if you're going to write maybe a poem about Camp Tapawingo, does that feel uncomfortable to you?
I probably wouldn't write a poem about the camp. Well, I shouldn't say that.
Or a sonnet or something.
What did you say? Does it feel what?
Like uncomfortable writing like outside of your trauma?
Oh, no, it's actually a place I'm exploring more. I think for so many years, I wrote through the trauma for my own well-being. Like it was to express that and get it out of my body and compartmentalize and live in a more integrated experience. But I actually just had a book picked up by Harbor Editions called The Optimist Shelters in Place. And that's not about trauma. It is about loneliness after divorce. It is about loneliness during the pandemic. I found an article that was talking about that, and very different style for me. There's no trauma in it. It was kind of cool to write and now to read and go, oh, I can write other things. The first poem I ever published was a love poem.
But some people feel the trauma during loneliness and it is trauma during the pandemic. So
it's true. Yes. The book is just a very different kind of, it doesn't feel nearly as traumatic as what I just read to you and some of the other stuff I've done. But I have another book that I have some editors that want it. I haven't decided what I'm going to do, but it's about being married to a gay man. It has a different kind of trauma, and there's a lot of love expressed in that. So I'm definitely looking forward to writing all sorts of stuff that are not necessarily sourced in trauma.
Well, your full-length book, Slaughter the Birds, about to come out. You released Parrot Flower earlier this year and Still Life in 2020. Are there distinctly different themes in those 3 books?
No, these 3 were kind of my first. Well, I have an older one called White Goat Black Sheep, and that's also all 4 of these books sort of fit into that category of working through sexual assault, gaslighting, partner violence. Still Life, you know, is exclusively dealing with the assault when I was a child. So is Black Goat, White Sheep. And then the other two, Parrot Flower and this one involve a couple. Both of them, you know, involve two people. So, but yeah, these 4 books really are all about the same topics.
Is it difficult to promote 3 books that came out so closely together?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think I sold, I you know, marketed the 2 chapbooks during a pandemic, and I think by the time I got to, this is my first full-length book, so it's like the most exciting for me. By the time I got to this, I had to be kind of like, hello, buy this one too, because it's, you know, yeah, it's a lot of books in one year. This one's only $10 for pre-order though. I keep telling them, like, this is the cheapest one, you guys.
$10 for a full-length book is a wonderful price.
Yeah, only for pre-order though. After that, it's $16. So please, if you want this, please pre-order. It also helps my publisher know that this is a good book.
So let's finish up the questioning here. Your last poem, you know, where you were talking about people that believe the earth is flat. Now, why do you think society is so eager to believe things that aren't scientific whatsoever?
Well, that's probably the toughest question. Because I am not an exclusive, I love science. But like, I don't think that we can prove everything through the material world. And I do read a lot of metaphysical stuff, you know, as well. So, and there's a science to that, as well as the spirituality that we can't really prove. So, I can't fully answer that, maybe because I'm not super eager to, you know, believe things that aren't necessarily, I research things very heavily. I look into things very deeply. Flat Earth, you know, I saw the truck in Denton when I was there once, and I thought that I had no idea what it was. I was like, really? I thought it was a joke. but some things, yes, are mind-blowing. That's one of them. But I think to answer the question as best I can, I think that we all have needs, human needs, right? That need to be met in one way or another. And when we can't meet them based on what is in the knowable world, whatever that might be for us, when we can't meet them in what we already experience, then we do sort of reach for ways to have those needs met. And that can take any shape or form. I think that in the end, we're just human, and you know, we need what we need, and we will even imagine the meeting of that need when we need to. Hope
So
that
which is the most true? The earth is flat, the moon landing didn't occur, Kennedy had 1 shooter, or the election was fixed.
What was the second option? The moon landing didn't.
The moon landing was fake.
I don't think any of those are true. I'm sorry.
Well, the most true.
The most true. I'll have to go with the Kennedy one because I don't know anything else about it.
Well, awesome. Thank you for being such a great guest. And let me put your book up once more. Yeah, that should have shared the screen, right? Did it? Oh, there it is. I have to actually hit the. So there is Kimberly's website, and so check it out. But you can find her books, and I'm sure that her publisher would love you to order. I mean, there's Parrot Flower, there's Still Life. These are the previous ones, and the brand new one, and hopefully it's on this page.
I don't have it up on the website yet.
Okay, so maybe you can hold it up when we bounce back to you. So so definitely check it out. So yeah, why don't you hold it up so people can see? It's a wonderful cover. Slaughter the One Bird. All right, so thank you once again. And for everybody that's watching on the Facebook site, you know, tune in, keep watching. We're going to cut you off right now. If you're interested in reading in the open mic, just log into the Zoom right now, and that's fine. If you want to participate in the Q&A in the future, log in next week. So thank you all for coming.